going to this side.
Yeah. Well, I've been looking forward to this for months, and preparing different things I thought would be of benefit to you all. It is really true that we're not that old, but we do feel like, we have millennial or Gen Z hearts. And we'll get into that a little bit and how we celebrate you and the people that you are and what you're trying to create. You've really taught our generation the lessons that we should have learned at your age, but now you're teaching us. And so we're gonna send back some of that love to you in the things that we present. We thought it would be important to know that when we talk about entrepreneurialism, and I just had a conversation here with someone earlier about, accounting isn't really entrepreneurialism. But really, any job on earth has entrepreneurialism in it, because creativity is what entrepreneurialism is all about. Whether it's your own business or working for others, you can offer those things up and still be an entrepreneur. So I wanted to clarify that, and also to clarify that entrepreneurialism and creating your own business is not really about you. Sometimes we think it is. Oh, I'm going to have, so much more free time, and I'm going to, govern my own future and be my own boss and all these things, which some of those things are true. But today I hope you learn that the focus won't be about you, but about the relationships that you form in the process, which last forever and are the most important part of entrepreneurialism. We have some stories to tell about some of our businesses. We've had some amazing successes and some epic failures. We're going to share a little bit about each of those. And I don't mean $10,000 losses, I mean millions of dollars in losses. And obviously, since we're standing here, we must have had a little bit more gain than we did loss. But the lessons that we learned, we want to share with you today.
And before we get going too much further, he has a very soft voice, so if he drops off and you guys can't hear him, please raise your hand. When we go through a drive-through, the people at the drive-through cannot hear him. So please don't hesitate to go, hey, I can't hear, okay? Me, you can hear anywhere, usually. Down the street.
So a couple of businesses just to start with that were very early on. One was called newsletter marketing. This was before the internet, we didn't have cell phones. Well, I had one of the very first cell phones. It was about the size of this table mounted in the dash of my car. It was hilarious if you think about it. You have to Google that. Original cell phones in cars. And so it wasn't so high tech, but I just, that was an era of newsletters where it was really big to get in the mail a newsletter from a business or something. And so we created a business and we got several dozen clients where we would actually create their newsletters and mail them. And it was, I would say it was a success in this way. A business that we started later that was really the foundational business of most of our financial success used the things I learned in that business, which didn't really put any food on the table, to make it work. And so it wasn't a waste. In fact, what we learned is that even in our losses, we learn things that are a part of us that we can, apply to future endeavors and make us more successful. So that was newsletter marketing.
One of the other ideas, one day Steve came home. He'd been out on a job doing some inspections. And he came home with a carload of 100 fire extinguishers.
They are beautiful, aren't they?
He had this idea.
The reason I got to bring them home is because I was doing fire inspections at the time, and these were illegal. And so I took them off of his hands for free. I was performing a service.
But the idea was, we're going to take these and we're going to make lamps out of them. And we're going to go to the swap meet and we're going to sell these and we're going to make a killing. So our little family helped drill the holes, put light bulbs, we put lampshades on them, and we schlepped our 100 fire extinguisher lamps to the swap meet, and we sold one. And then our poor family, all of our extended family got fire extinguisher lamps for Christmas, and I honestly don't remember what happened to the
Well,
last
can you
80.
imagine, the lamppost comes up from the center, beautiful shade, and the clicker's right here in the hose? It's pretty cool, isn't it?
Okay, you're starting to get a little hint of how an entrepreneur, how their minds work. They are not normal. You guys, those of you that are in here thinking about your own businesses, you don't think normally. You don't think like everybody else. What did we learn? What would you have learned? What could we have learned from this? Well, a couple of things that we learned. We were crazy. We could try anything. The risk, we assessed the risk. It wasn't that big of a risk.
My business plan lacked. I didn't really do a market study.
No, none. And he came home and he didn't talk to his business partner before he did that either. And I thought about that. I woke up this morning thinking, he was ahead of his time with those extinguishers. Steampunk wasn't really a thing, but maybe if he still had them, he could do something today. But you know what? He had such a limited quantity, it wasn't worth it.
I could find more if you think it's really viable.
No, we're good. So we're going to get you a little sampling. Okay, I thought it would click. It's not clicking.
I'm going to click once for you, and then we'll see if it'll...
So,
Next.
I'm trying to get to the next one. No? Did I do that or did you?
I did that.
Okay.
Right here.
Okay.
Malfunction. It's okay.
So, is this your name?
Yeah, so this is a sampling of some of the business ventures that we have or are involved in today. U.S. Reports was the biggest thing that we created, and it lasted for almost 30 years, and we sold it in 2010. And then we...
Well, I'm going to stop him. He doesn't like to talk about that business because he thinks it's bragging. He will never, ever tell you how great or how inventive, or he'll never do that. But this was a business that we built from scratch. It lasted for 28 years. And by the time we started in California, by the time we sold it, it was the second largest business in the country and of its kind. And that's where we employed all of these different people. We learned a lot of lessons through that process.
So we're involved in other things. We're still involved in similar type businesses that we own shares of. Some of my children have started businesses, and they're all entrepreneurs because that's how it is when you sit around the dinner table with parents who are entrepreneurs. Every dinner is a board meeting, for better or worse.
And every family vacation is something like that too.
Yeah, so we're into banking. We've done some franchising, ranching, cattle, and still have a love for a lot of these things, and some of them are still viable. And even now, we've been a year and a half in Cedar City, and we've started some new businesses that are in the incubation stage because we just can't help ourselves.
Your minds, they don't stop. They just keep working.
And Launching Leaders we'll tell you about right now.
Did I do that?
That was fantastic, Ginger.
So I get to talk about Launching Leaders. So we've been doing this for over 12 years. Launching Leaders is going to be something that is completely different than anything you might have ever heard about before. It's a leadership program, but it's also more like a self-help leadership program. It allows you to go through the course in such a way that you can go through at your own pace. You can do it on your laptop, your iPad, your iPhone, and you can go as fast or as slow as you want. The thing that's different about this is that it's faith-based.
Whatever your faith is.
Whatever your
or no
faith is.
or no faith at all.
Right. We have a Christian version, a non-Christian version that's been vetted by imams and rabbis. And so there's nothing but what it does is it changes the way you think. It teaches you how to create your own future. Because we know that you guys, you get the information, you're sick of hearing somebody lecture to you. Give me the tools and get out of my way and let me figure it out myself. And that's what we're trying to give you. We want to give you the tools and then let you figure it out for yourself. We are so passionate about this that it's in 75 countries. It's in Mandarin, French, Portuguese. We're having it translated into Spanish. We just finished our huge conference in Taiwan, and we did that globally. And we had students that were from all over the world. Russia, we had students from Russia zooming in Taiwan's program. We brought books for you for free. These are our gifts to you.
Well, the whole program is free. Just you know, it is a 501c3, but some of those 501c3s, you see people like us getting huge salaries. None of the founders have ever taken one dime from this charity. It's all given back. And so the books we brought for you today are free. We wrote a book about entrepreneurialism for 20 and 30 somethings, which are the lessons that we've learned in the process of experience, and about 100 or so of the best entrepreneurial and business books that I've read and studied. So here, in just a short book, you get what I would call the gems, and I think it will really help you on your entrepreneurial journey. And the other is Launching Leaders, the course curriculum itself, which is a book, and there's 12 chapters. We also learned that the curriculum is something that you develop. Whether you form a small group of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of you and decide to do it yourself and facilitate it yourself, you will be the ones facilitating it. We will train the facilitator. Our admin from New Zealand does that. But then you do it. You don't want gray-haired people standing in front of you telling you how to build a business or live a life. And that's what we love about you. You've pushed away hierarchy, you know, which is what we tried to do in the 60s, but we were arrested for that.
So before we go too much further, we want to thank you guys. We want to thank you for your creativity.
Yeah, we created a list over time of the things we love about your generation. Thank you for your concern for the world.
Thank you for being authentically you. You don't pretend.
And for pushing back against, you know, the hierarchy. Not that hierarchy is not good in some cases, but you have the opportunity to question it. So thank you for that.
We really like your desire to create a holistic and an inclusive culture. Nobody has to be excluded.
And thank you for your innovations in technology. This is about as good as it gets for us. But my daughter, you know, handles all my IT needs. So thank you for just knowing it instinctively.
It's a lot harder for us. We love that you are global thinkers. It's not just about here, it's about here.
And that you celebrate diversity and have collaborative spirits.
One of the things that we love is you have adventurous spirits. There's things that I would never have experienced if I didn't have a son-in-law that would take us on all these paths all over southern Utah that aren't charted, that he's downloaded into a map and drag us up mountains and into caves. Those are things I would never think of, but I get to participate in because he does.
Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Dudley, one of the world's foremost experts on cacti.
Yes.
So we have a whole list. In the absence, just for the sake of time, we won't go through every one of them, but we celebrate who you are and what you mean really to the world.
Ready?
Yes. Without further ado. So it was 44 years, no, 40 years ago?
43.
43 years ago, that we were living in Simi Valley, California, and kind of doing our own thing, making a big success of fire extinguishers and things like that. And a guy rolled into town, 35 years old, 6 children, moved into our congregation, retired. He had retired at age 35, and so I had the courage to approach him and adopt him. What's wrong?
Well, your back's to the
Oh.
camera.
As a mentor, and he was gracious enough to accept. And so for many months it went like this. Every Saturday morning I would meet him at his Winnebago.
That's an RV, in case you don't know.
I think they know what Winnebagos are. And I would sit in the Winnebago. He would have his morning paper and he would be reading it, and then he would pull them down with his reading glasses and he would give me my marching orders for that week. And it would be things like, read the Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino, and let's talk about it. And it went on like that. And I would return and report. And I didn't know at the time, but I was sort of like his guinea pig as he was creating these principles, that he had in his head for a long time. And so we, from that, drafted our first 5-year financial plan. And you can see it might be somewhat personal, but it's actually also so simple. If your professor asks you for a 5-year life plan to show you what you're going to do in 5 years, can you put it down into one page? Probably if you can, it doesn't mean that much. This is all you need is one page. And so we started off, hey, what if we saved $25 more a week? And at the time that seemed enormous, but we were able to sacrifice and do it. What were the sacrifices that we made, Ginger?
Well, our date nights were Slurpees with 2 straws. It was Taco Bell, bean and cheese burritos. We didn't buy new clothes. We recognized our goal was to create a savings that would allow us to be able to propel ourselves forward. We didn't have rich parents. We were both from very, very humble backgrounds. And so the idea of creating something for the future for ourselves, we had to figure that out.
Mm-hmm. So this was the plan, and we won't spend a lot of time on it except to know that we did begin with the end in mind. And when you put something in your subconscious like that this is what I want to do in 5 years, and we even had an idea of what I was going to be a State Farm agent. That was my hope. I stayed in insurance, but something else happened. But because we had this going in the back of our mind and living it for 5 years, at that 5-year mark, that's when this journey began. And it so prepared us that, how much money did we earn the first year of business?
Well, you mean how much were we able to take out of our business the first year? $4,000 is what we were able to take out of our business.
And we had a small family and bills and rent and all those things, so that that's not a lot of money, but we did it, and we did it gratefully because we had planned for it.
One thing is that a goal, if it's not written down, if you don't put it someplace and codify it, it's only a wish.
And you can't do it without mentors, and we have a whole chapter in the book on finding and adopting mentors. Be bold. I have relationships with some of the most amazing people. I have, for example, and I'm not bragging, but I'm bold. I have an ongoing email dialogue with Craig McEwen. You know who he is? He wrote Essentialism. One time we needed to get permission for a piece of art we wanted to use in our program. So I just emailed the artist. I found him, I emailed him. He said, sure, that'd be fantastic, because I told him the purpose and the cause.
What about when you reached out to Guy Kawasaki?
I have an ongoing relationship with Guy Kawasaki. Any of you know who he is? If you've never read The Art of the Start, that should be on your top 5 for starting a business. The Art of the Start by Guy Kawasaki. It took him 6 months to respond to my email, but he did, and now we know each other. So be bold and find mentors.
All right, before I go to the next slide, I want.
Oh, we're going to have to pick up the pace.
I know,
think.
we'll pick up the pace. I'm going to give you a disclaimer. Remember, in the very beginning, I said entrepreneurs think differently? So we're going to go into a segment now, and it's going to give you some insight into Steve's mind.
We're going to, the university has arranged counseling for you, should this affect you adversely.
So, this is our daughter Lexi, who is here, and she is hugging this giant sequoia tree. We love trees. There's lessons to be learned in anything that you experience along your journey. We happen to learn lessons from trees. So we're going to go through some of those lessons. And you're going to think to yourself, why are they talking about trees in an entrepreneur class? It's because we want to change the way you see things. We want to change the way you think. Because the reality is most people go through life and the opportunities just pass them right by. Because they don't know how to notice what is right in front of them. And we're always looking for something different. If your thought process is changed when those opportunities come along, you know how to reach out and grab it. And maybe you'll look at it, maybe you'll pick it apart. It's your decision, it's your journey, but we want you to start noticing in a different way.
So we've only been here in Cedar City a year and a half. We moved from northern Colorado. And while there, I decided to photograph over time a tree in my backyard as it went through its stages of life. And one of the things that I want you to take away today is time is on your side. You get this big idea and you want to launch it, and you're excited, and you think the timing is perfect. And sometimes, sometimes things can be rushed. Businesses don't have to be built in a day and a half. And especially at your age, time is on your side. Remember a 5-year plan? It's not so long, to plan ahead. So we learned this from trees. This tree was only 4 feet tall when we planted it. And I remembered as I was writing this up, people like Tesla and Edison and Westinghouse and others, where it took a long time for their dreams to come to reality. But time is on your side.
Did you bring a folder? Nope, don't worry.
That's okay.
This one, we want to talk about embrace the seasons. Act upon your ideas as you get them, as they're coming to you. Have a place for them. A folder on your laptop where you gather and you keep track of it. Steve's love language is writing. So he has to write it, and he has papers, and he puts it in a manila folder. Whatever is your way of doing it, embrace that process.
I call that capturing the light as it comes to you. And when I put a label on a folder, and it's a business name that I've got in my mind, that business has already started its birthing process. I'm serious. That's the beginning for me, a folder with a name on it. I can show you several that actually became businesses.
Some that made it to the trash can.
Yeah.
But you have to have a place.
So it looks like this tree's lost most of its leaves at this point. But the sun is still coming out, still warming it every day. I picture this tree with thousands of little soldiers running around inside of it, doing special tasks right now because it's changing its form. This is the stage where the ideas change form and you foster them. The tree isn't dying. It's really just getting ready. It's starting to implement a vision.
All right, now this is, it looks like winter. It's almost like the tree is dead, but it isn't. Your idea is not dead. This is the stage where you take all of your energy, you take it all inside, and this is where it's kind of like you're going to burst forth shortly.
This is where your 5-year plan is developed. You're sinking roots. It's getting deeper. It's becoming a creation, actually.
It's also the time where you're going to get the most negativity. This is going to be where all your friends are going to think, What are you doing? It's going to be the people around you. And so conserve and hold on to and keep encapsulated what you're doing. We had people, when we decided to launch our business, that thought we were insane. How could you possibly leave a 4-figure salary, health benefits?
No, it's 6 figures.
Oh, sorry.
Not to brag.
How could we leave
But in
all of that?
1988, that was kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it was. How could we leave all of that for the great unknown? Oh, babe,
okay.
sorry.
She talks with her hands.
Sorry. We don't normally stand next to each other when I'm doing that. All right, here we go.
Yeah, so the stages. Time is on your side. You know, the process of change is a blessing in your life. Take the time during that time to not give up. Keep moving forward. Now we're going to tell you of a story you've never heard ever before.
And
This is where you could use counseling after.
one day in California, and this is the perfect time of year to talk about Christmas trees. In California, you go to a Christmas tree farm to get your tree. And on our way as a family, we're in the car, and Steve says out to us and the 2 children that were there at the time, he says, I think that we should give a home to a tree that no one else will give a home to. And we all went, ha, 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 ha. And then we got there, and we proceeded to go look for the perfect Christmas tree. And then we hear Steve say, come here, I found it. We go running over, and there is this tree. And this is not that tree. This is a subsequent tree. But the first tree had Christmas tree at the bottom, then it had this much bare trunk, then it had a ball, and then it had this much bare trunk, and then it had Bart Simpson's haircut at the very top. And we saw that tree, and we started laughing hysterically. And we thought that was the funniest tree we'd ever seen. And then we proceeded to leave and go find the perfect tree, and we hear as he cuts the tree down. And he said, we found it, we're taking this tree home. This is our tree. And in California, you put the tree in the front yard, hose it off, and let it drip dry because it's dusty before you bring it in. Our Jewish neighbor came over and said, my wife sent me over. What is that? I said, it's our Christmas tree. He said, no, really, what is it? It's our Christmas tree. He could not fathom this. But we learned a specific lesson from this tree. Once it was decorated, it was beautiful.
And just like you, it becomes very unique, just like you're uniquely you. I learned from that experience. I maybe should have counseled with my wife and business partner and family just a little longer before I cut the tree down. But now you're going to see some of the beauties of what we have gone through for many years. And just wonder in your mind, would this be in our home? And if you don't use Christmas trees or celebrate that, just you can still imagine.
All right. Also imagine the fact that we're actively going in the forest seeking these trees. I thought about it this morning when I woke up. Do you remember all the looks that we would get as we would strap a tree?
Well, one time I had the owner of the farm come out to my car, and he wanted to shake the hand of the man who would take that tree and offer me a discount. I said I would never, ever, defame that tree with a discount.
So we came up with the idea the tree has to elicit a feeling. You have to find some joy in it, and you have to laugh.
So the entrepreneurial thing is that we gave these trees life. You'll have folks come into your entrepreneurial picture, and you'll wonder if they're right people, right seat on the bus, all that. And so oftentimes, if you just give it life and make a home for their existence, you'll find that it's all about relationships, and things just work out.
This tree, we also named them. This one was goalpost for obvious reasons. What are we seeing that the world is not? As you change your mind, as you change your focus, notice things that maybe someone else would walk right past.
So the next, the one in this corner here, right here, that one's called duct tape. because it just needed a little extra assistance to stand. And you'll notice too that this is actually a family affair. When my family was eventually fired from the company that we had formed and built for 28 years, because I sold the company and then worked for them for 5 years. You read about this in the book. And then we were fired. And it's the first time in my life I'd actually been fired. And, you know, I called my mentor of many years and he said, Steve, everybody needs to go through that experience at least once. So I have. But Ginger told me we weren't building a company, we were building a family. Think about that in your entrepreneurial mission. You're really building a family because it's all about relationships, fulfilling the measure of your creation. And then we had one called Snowman, because you can see where the snowman ended up in the decoration. Now, after they're decorated, aren't they gorgeous? I mean, they look different. I guess my only, I'm sorry that we ended the life of the tree to have this experience, but it's how we learned it. The next one.
But we want you to believe in your ideas. Take a risk and make it uniquely your own. Go with your gut.
Yeah. Do you love the word transformation? That's one of my favorite words. That's what these trees went through. And that's what you go through as you build a business, a transformation. This was my favorite one. We called this one Rudolph. You can see that this is really how it grew. It grew a little bit, and then it came down. It was searching for light because it was in a forest and it couldn't find the light. Finally, it came out and found the light and began to blossom and grow. And, I've thought about this tree many times in business. You need to embrace the ideas and people that are different. Would any of you feel good about putting this tree in your living room? Would your parents agree? Would your family? I challenge you to do this. This is a great adventure. You can teach your parents how to go take care of this kind of a tree. What do you think? No?
Rudolph is absolutely still our favorite tree. All right, now we're going to go to a different type of tree. This is Steve there, and we're in the middle of the redwood forest in Northern California.
Yeah, and we learned a lot of lessons from these trees as well. And we wanted to point some out in an entrepreneurial vein. But we wanted you to kind of tell us what you see. So first, a redwood, when they have injured bark, they form a burl or a ball that produces offshoots. Nothing can kill a redwood tree. It always finds a way to continue on. And the entrepreneurial lesson is? Anyone?
Persevere.
Persevere. That's a good one. Yes. Go ahead, Ginger.
Even when they fall down, when redwood trees fall down, they give long life to ferns, offshoots, and other new trees. Sometimes new life is breathed into the tree when it falls.
In the entrepreneurial lesson?
Go ahead.
See it as a failure, see it as the next step.
Exactly.
Excellent.
What else?
Always provide value.
There's not anything that you don't learn that doesn't set you up or that you can't use later on. Nothing's wasted. Nothing's wasted.
Another thing we learned from redwoods especially is that the root systems are extremely wide. So they intertwine with each other for over 100 feet. What's the lesson from that?
Expand your network.
Yeah. It's who you know, not what you know, most of the time, right? And no one succeeds alone. Excellent.
Their bark will grow to a thickness of between 6 and 12 inches, and so it insulates and protects them. What might be a lesson there? Yes, have good insurance. Okay,
That's a good one. I hadn't thought of that one.
I hadn't thought of that one.
So let's summarize what we've learned from the trees today very quickly.
Yep. So, first one is, oh, there we go. Challenges and apparent failures simply add dimension to your eventual success.
Understand that you have unique potential and celebrate that.
Visualize, plan, dream. Know where do you want to go? What do you want to create? It has to start someplace first. It starts with inspiration before you can make it a material idea.
And be bold in finding and adopting your mentors. I guess my judgment is that if you found a mentor that you really want to adopt, they will say yes to your invitation if they're worthy of being your mentor.
Don't feel like you have to rush. I know at this time in your life, you're going to school, you're spending this time, this energy, this money. Everything feels huge. And like you have to make these important decisions. You're going to be stuck with this for the rest of your life. Be flexible, be able to pivot. Take ideas, and then some of them, give yourself permission to get rid of those ideas. Your generation will go through more adaptations and changes than any of the previous generations. And if you go into it knowing that, it takes a little bit of pressure off, and it gives you more fluidity and adaptability in that process as you're seeking to discover the things that resonate with you, because you guys aren't willing to settle. You're not like your grandparents and your parents in that regard. If there isn't something worthy and noble in what you're doing, you're not interested.
So the next couple, in studying successful people, you'll note that they almost all of them journal, they draw, they create, and they have a place to capture the light that comes to them. And being able to embrace change. Nothing is more constant than change. They're just simply opportunities to fine-tune. And find what's missing. Do you want something? You want to say something, Jen?
No.
I have an author friend, a prolific author, and I spent some time with him, and I asked him, how does he get his ideas to write? And he says he goes to libraries, he searches in sections that he wants to write about, he looks for things that have not been written about, and that's what he focuses on. That's what he writes about.
Interesting.
Best-selling author, prolific. And lastly,
obviously you have to make a profit. Obviously you've got to be able to support yourself. Obviously those things have to play into it. But if you don't work on the relationships, if you're not focused on the people, if you're not focused on those things, then it really doesn't matter, because you will not feel fulfilled.
and that's the reason for success, to bless the lives of others and form lasting relationships. And lastly, and with great appreciation for your kindness and participation today, this quote really meant a lot to us. Do you want to read that quote, Jens?
May we face the future with the steady serenity of a tree, that supreme lover of light, always reaching both higher and deeper, rooted in a network of kinship and ringed by a more patient view of time. Thank you for allowing us to come and share with you. It may have been different than what you were thinking, but we're open to questions, and we've allowed some space for that.
Let's have some questions.
Questions, yeah.
Which of your entrepreneurial endeavors do you think you learned the least from?
Oh. The least? Maybe the fire extinguishers. Yeah, because it was kind of cold and rainy at the swap meet, and I wasn't, yeah, that one.
That'll work. Others?
What's both of your favorite books?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, you guys do not know what you've asked. This man has a library that is so extensive, and I would say his favorite books, I can't even guess, but it's usually the one he's reading. But he does write, so he's an author, so he has a love affair with words.
I'll tell you what I'll do. At the last slide, it shows my email. If you'll send me a little note, I'll send you my top 10. Okay.
There was another hand.
So with the fire extinguisher lamps, do you think had you advertised it differently, displayed it differently, you would have sold more? Did you kind of just put them out and say, here, this is the price, please buy it? Or did you kind of do it in a supply and demand sort of way, where you put one or two out and like, this is an original idea?
You know,
Those are the questions. Those are great questions because those are some of the things we learned. We didn't do any of that. You know?
And do you know what, and I thought about that. Do you know what a swap meet is? Some people may not even know that that's, in California, it meant you went to the drive-in on a Saturday and everybody that just had things sitting out in front of their cars to sell. So people would come to buy things. So in our mind, that's where we took it.
I still believe in the idea, and if you want to steal it from me, I can find you some extinguishers, and if you want to put this would be an interesting study.
No, don't do it. Don't, because don't do it.
More questions?
This is just my curiosity with Roxbury, because I worked there for 4 years. Did you guys have a franchise, or were you guys co-founders?
We had a franchise in Idaho.
We had 2 franchises in Idaho in the Boise area. Yeah, and we ran those for a while, and then we actually ended up selling them back to the owner.
So knowing what you guys know now, would you go back and change anything that you did with your old or other businesses, or would you take like the lessons and leave it the way it was?
That's a great question. I know what I would do. Do you care?
I don't mind at all, no.
I wouldn't change a thing. Because the insight that we gained along the way, I think the difference is, if it's kind of like grief. If you're overwhelmed by grief, you can't process. You just stay mired in it. With the same thing with lessons along the way in business, because we're great partners together, Steve's the idea guy. He's the guy he's the creative genius person that can come up with an idea nobody's ever heard of. And I'm the detail person. I can listen to the idea, and that's hard sometimes for creative people, to have somebody poke holes and kind of tweak it. And so we learned how to do that really well together. And because of that process, we've both gained some of those strengths from each other. But the lessons that we learned, we kind of had that sense from the very beginning that it really had nothing to do with money, that it was all about how were we going to grow. And because we took that approach, I think we were able to learn those lessons. Like, I was thinking about one of them that was up there was Dudley Creek Farms. We know how to process chickens. How many people can say that?
And how many people would really want to do it?
Yeah, but we did it. You know, we've learned so many things.
But your question does bring up something I thought about actually this morning, you know, and maybe another way to phrase that, in all of these entrepreneurial endeavors and so forth, do you have any regrets? And I have one. We started business really right after we got married. We started doing things that were entrepreneurial, and we didn't finish college. My education, and I think I'm a learned man. I read 50 books a year and study, but I don't have that sheepskin to put up on the wall that says I did commit the time it was needed to actually get a degree. And I'd put a few hints out before our presentation, thinking we might get an honorary doctorate today. It didn't happen. So stick with it. Whatever your endeavors, stick with that process and get the sheepskin, even if it doesn't tie to or mean anything to the business that you're in. It's an accomplishment that you'll cherish for the rest of your life. And I regret that.
So one of your principles is people over profits. I wonder if you can share a time when those two were in conflict and you had to give up profits.
So I was sitting on the beach in Carlsbad, California, and I was just thinking, we're not giving enough back through our business. It's just all about profit, And the thought came to me that we needed to do more, and so I came up with the idea of giving to our clients' charities. And so we formed a program where we decided we would give 2% of our profits back to our clients based upon the dollar volume they had with us to give to their charity of choice. All we had to do was vet the charity to make sure it was legit. And I went back to the board and I said, this is what I want to do. And they said, Steve, we can't do that. We don't make enough profit. I said, let's do it anyway. And we did it. In the next 5 years, we were the most profitable we had ever been just by doing that one act. And all the employees then were tied in a different way. Hey, every dollar we bill for this client, 2% of that goes to their charity, which could be Hearts for Horses or whatever. We had 100 different charities we donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to in their name. And it wasn't any kind of a huckster thing hoping to get more business. It was just to give back.
Anything else you'd like to share? I know you said you had one other slide.
Oh,
to pull
he
up,
does.
and then
We love bears. Our son, our son's nickname is Bear.
So write down our phone number, email, text, email, whatever. And if you want to be a part of Launching Leaders, we'll see that happens. It's all for free. And don't leave without a book. They're all over here. There's 2 books. Get one of each. Okay? Because today is Giving Tuesday. It's Giving Tuesday, right?
let's say thanks for books, presentation, knowledge, wisdom shared with us today.